everybody, it's Miss Mercado again with another Storybook STEM activity. Today we're going to talk about the story of the Three Little Pigs. Well, not exactly. We're going to talk about the true story of the Three Little Pigs. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to read you a book today called The True Story of the Three Little Pigs by John Sieska. The true story. How do we know which side is really the true story? Well, the original Three Little Pigs story, we know that one, where the three little pigs built three houses, and they tell us the wolf came and huffed and puffed and blew their house down. Well, this story is told from a different perspective. Instead of the three little pigs telling the story, the wolf tells the story from his point of view. What does point of view mean? Let's talk about that for a second. So what is point of view? Point of view is the view from which a story is told, the perspective that the person telling the story gives the story. So, for example, if a character inside of the story is telling the story, then that would be considered first-person point of view. A character in the story would tell us how they're feeling about every event that happens. We would hear words like I, me, we, because that person in the story is telling what happened. If the story is in third person, that means someone outside of the story is telling us what happened. You might hear words like they, he, she, because the person telling us the story was not in the story. So, would a story change if it was told from a different point of view? We're going to look at that through the eyes of the Three Little Pigs. The classic version of the Three Little Pigs, which was told from a narrator's point of view, third person. And we're going to read the true story of the Three Little Pigs, told from a first person point of view by the wolf. So I'm going to read the true story of the Three Little Pigs. And I want you to listen for words like I, me, because this is told in first person from the wolf's point of view. Here we go. Everybody knows the story of the Three Little Pigs, or at least they think they do. Nobody knows the real story because nobody has ever heard my side of the story. Do you hear that? My, because the wolf is telling us the story now. I'm the wolf, Alexander T. Wolf. You can call me Al. I don't know how this whole big bad wolf thing got started, but it's all wrong. Maybe it's because of our diet. Hey, it's not my fault that wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies and sheeps and pigs. That's just the way we are. If cheeseburgers were cute, folks would probably think you were big and bad too. But like I was saying, the whole big bad wolf thing is all wrong. The real story is about a sneeze and a cup of sugar. This is the real story. Way back in Once Upon a Time, I was making a birthday cake for my dear old granny. I had a terrible sneezing cold and I ran out of sugar. So I walked down the street to ask my neighbor for a cup of sugar. Now this neighbor was a pig, and he wasn't too bright either. He had built his whole house out of straw. Can you believe it? I mean, who in his right mind would build a house of straw? So of course, the minute I knocked on the door, it fell right in. I didn't want to just walk into someone else's house, so I called, little pig, are you in? No answer. I was just about to go home with a cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake, but that's when my nose started to itch. I felt a sneeze coming on, and I huffed, and I snuffed. You know what happens? And I sneezed a great sneeze. And you know what? That whole straw house fell down, and right in the middle of a pile of straw was the first little pig, dead as a doornail. He had been home the whole time. It seemed like a shame to leave a perfectly good ham dinner lying there in the straw, so I ate it up. Think of it as a big cheeseburger just lying there. I was feeling a little better, but I still didn't have my cup of sugar, so I went to the next neighbor's house. This neighbor was the first little pig's brother. He was a little smarter, but not much. He had built his house of sticks. I rang the bell in the stick house. Nobody answered. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? He yelled back, "Go away, wolf! You can't come in. I'm shaving the hairs on my chinny chin." I had just grabbed the doorknob when I felt another sneeze coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I tried to cover my mouth, but I sneezed a great sneeze. And you're not going to believe it, but this guy's house fell just like his brother's. And when the dust cleared, there was the second little pig, dead as a doornail. Wolf's honor. Now, you know food will spoil if you just leave it out in the open, so I did the only thing there was to do. I had dinner. Again. And think of it as a second helping. I was getting awfully full, but my cold was feeling a little bit better, and I still didn't have that cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake, so I went to the next house. This guy was the first and second little pig's brother. He must have been the brains of the family. He had built his house of bricks. I knocked on the brick house, but no answer. I called, "Mr. Pig, are you in?" And do you know what that rude little porker answered? "Get out of here, wolf, and don't bother me again." Talk about impolite. He probably had a whole sack full of sugar, and he wouldn't even give me one little cup for my dear sweet granny's birthday cake. What a pig. I was just about to go home and maybe make a nice birthday card instead of a cake, but when I felt a cold coming on, I huffed, and I snuffed, and I sneezed once again, and the third little pig yelled, "And your old granny can sit on a pin." Now, I'm usually a pretty calm fellow, but when somebody talks about my granny like that, I go a little crazy. When the cops drove up, of course I was trying to break down the pig's door, and the whole time I was huffing and puffing and sneezing and making a real scene. The rest, as they say, is history. The news reporters found out about the 2 pigs I had for dinner, and they figured a sick guy going to borrow a cup of sugar didn't sound very exciting. So they jazzed up the story with all that huff and puff and blow your house down, and they made me the big bad wolf. That's it. That's the real story. I was framed. But maybe you could loan me a cup of sugar? So remember what we said about point of view. The classic Three Little Pigs story that we all know is told from the narrator, third person point of view. But the story that we just read was told from first person point of view by the wolf. So did the story change at all? We can use a Venn diagram like this one to compare and contrast the differences and similarities between the classic story of the Three Little Pigs or the true story that we just read of the Three Little Pigs. So on either side, this side will put everything that was different in the classical story, and on this side we'll put everything that was different in the true story, and in the middle we list the things that were the same. So go ahead and take a few minutes to compare and contrast the 2 stories. Don't forget about the point of view that we talked about. So we all might have similar or different answers on our Venn diagrams. Some of the things you might have put is that in both stories we had 3 little pigs and a wolf. Also in both stories, the 3 little pigs built a house of straw, of wood sticks, and of bricks. Something different was that the true story was told from the perspective of the wolf, and the classic story is from a narrator in third person point of view. Another difference might be that in the true story, the wolf says he was framed and he was making a cake for his granny, but that's not what it says in the classical story. So now that you've read both of these stories and you learned a little bit about point of view, let's talk about your challenge for today. Are you ready? So the wolf was able to blow down the house of straw and of wood because those houses weren't strong enough. Those materials were weak. He wasn't able to blow down the house of bricks because bricks are a stronger material. Your challenge today is called the Paper Table Challenge. Paper table? Can you make a table out of paper? You can, and this challenge today is going to show you how. What you're going to need are 8 sheets of newspaper. So this would be considered a sheet. If you don't have newspaper, you can use white printer paper, but newspaper would work better. So you need 8 sheets of newspaper, masking tape, and a small piece of cardboard. What you're going to do is make a table out of the newspaper. How do you do that? Well, I don't want to give it too much away, but think about how flimsy a piece of newspaper is. How can we make this newspaper stronger? What shape do you have to put it into? If I were, for example, to roll up this newspaper, would that make it a little bit stronger? This doesn't seem stronger. But what if I rolled it a little bit tighter? What if I made it into a shape that held something? So your challenge is to figure out how to turn these 8 pieces of newspaper into a table. And then once you have your table, how many books can you hold on top of your table? So get to work on your paper table. I can't wait to see what you come up with.